Hi, this is Eric Schleien. You are listening to the Intelligent Investing Podcast, and today we have on Mariusz Skonieczny. Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, that
Close.
was pretty good.
It was okay. Good, good. There's a few guests I've had on where it's like, okay, I cross my fingers that I hope I pronounced their name correctly. Wonderful. How's your day going?
Oh, it's very good. How about you?
Pretty good. Just yeah, it's been going okay. So tell us where are you calling from?
Well, I live in Indiana,
You live in
so
Indiana.
like the closest city or University of Notre Dame,
Okay.
South
So you're near
Bend,
South Bend.
Indiana. Right,
Are
right.
you in South Bend or just kind of right outside of it?
No, I'm. It's a city called Mishawaka,
Okay.
so it's right next to it.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what your background is, because and I know you have your own stuff that you post on YouTube, which is pretty interesting. So tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Right. So, I graduated college in 2004, and no, 2003. And at first, I entered the real estate industry. I was a real estate appraiser, both on the residential and commercial side. And while I was working for a commercial real estate brokerage company in 2008, when the whole thing was falling apart, right? I and at the time I was already interested in stocks. So I pretty much went to my boss and I said, in December of 2008, I'm quitting. What are you going to do? I'm starting Classic Value Investors. And literally December 31st, 2008 was my last day, and January 1st, 2009 was my first day, running Classic Value Investors. And, and ever since, that's what I've been doing. Just recently, I launched a new project called Microcap Explosions, and
What's
I
that?
released it. So Microcap Explosions is a private membership website where I
Okay.
share my research to microcap and small cap companies that served me very well over the last 10 years. And literally, I just launched it on Friday, so it's
Oh wow!
pretty crazy that we're
Congrats.
actually talking right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. Now, do you typically specialize in smaller businesses when you're looking at businesses?
Well, I feel like smaller businesses is where I can get my edge.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can add anything to Apple or Microsoft. Everybody's looking at it, but the investment industry is very much focused on ignoring the small cap space.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go in, it's first of all, it's easier to understand these businesses. It's easier to uh, get a hold of the management, and it's easier to do proper research like scuttlebutt and get some insights. Um, when everybody is not even they're not even in the radar screen.
Right. Huh. Now you do. I've watched some of your YouTube videos. And I've seen you pretty active on Twitter, which I'm like, okay, this guy's interesting. I got to get him on my show. Now you've done a lot of work and a lot of talking about the tanker stocks. It seems like you know a thing or two about that industry. Um, Tell us about where you just kind of how you see that industry in terms of today, because I know this has sort of been an ongoing saga for you.
Well, I think that the tanker stocks are just like the recovery stocks, right? During this COVID situation, people have been focusing on which companies are benefiting from this COVID disaster. So then you have Tesla, no, not Tesla, Netflix and Zoom and companies like this, Amazon,
Yeah.
everybody has been piling into these names. And I mean, not that they were already reasonably priced before that, but now they are, in the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're looking at, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what happens when we actually get some positive news on recovery or some kind of vaccine or some kind of treatment that will people feel comfortable returning to more a normalized life. People are going to start thinking, where should I be positioned? And that's going to be names like the tankers, airlines, And I'm not invested in airlines. I'm mostly, when it comes to the recovery stocks, I'm in tankers. But just in general, people are going to probably flood into these recovery names, and I'm always thinking to myself, okay, so if you thought it was a good idea to pay, whatever multiple times hope for Amazon or Zoom or whatever, who the hell are you going to sell your stocks to when the recovery starts coming?
Right. Multiple times hope. I love that expression. Did you make that up or did you take that from somewhere?
No, I made that up.
Love it. So how did you, I actually want to press into a little bit on the tanker stuff, which, pardon me if you're sick of talking about this, because I feel like half the videos you make are on this industry, and we'll put links in the show notes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sick on talking about it because, it's funny. I mean, tankers are not my biggest position, but everybody wants to talk about it. So,
well, it's
that's
it is
fine.
fascinating.
It
is fascinating. Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
I don't think, I started my YouTube channel during this call. Well, I had a YouTube channel, but
Okay.
it wasn't really active at all. I think I had like 40 subscribers, okay? And then the COVID hits, and I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself. So then I start talking on YouTube, and I start talking about these tanker stocks, and all of a sudden, my subscriber gate goes, to like almost 3,000 because of these freaking tankers, really. So that it's like, yeah, thank you very much for the tankers. If it wasn't for anything but that, it made me a little popular.
I love it. And you've had the CEO of Scorpio on there too, right?
Yeah, I love that guy. He's, everyone seems to be complaining about him because he likes to buy call options.
Yeah.
And, but I like the guy.
Well, isn't the big complaint that he might just be doing it to like pump up the stock, and then if he gets rid of them, he doesn't have to disclose that? Wasn't that the big upset with that?
Who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's like, who the hell cares? It's like he buys the freaking call options, okay? Gives you a signal, right? So I mean, are we all such babies that he has to give you a buy signal and a sell signal? I mean, seriously.
Well, this is probably something I shouldn't say on my show because I'm going to piss off a lot of probably people listening right now. But yeah, a lot of people in this industry are kind of babies. Like that there is some truth to that. So yeah, you know what? If someone's gonna be whiny and like a little bitchy and be like, oh, he's not gonna tell us when he sells, then like, why are you in the market, right? Like, why?
When you talk about the tanker stocks, for example, and I read this fantastic book, the Shipping Man, and the industry in general, like, Greeks are very much into it, right? And so they pride themselves with being the shipping man, being macho, having big balls, and all that. And here we have these hedge fund managers that are investing in these things, and they're like little babies.
Yeah.
Like, look, you're investing in the shipping stocks. You're not investing in Microsoft. It's like, if you don't have the balls to handle any volatility or any negativity like this, get out. And I always
go
say,
be a traditional financial advisor at a bank.
Right. It's like these hedge fund managers don't know anything about running a business. They know how to open a spreadsheets and run a bunch of numbers on Excel, and they tell others how to run businesses, And I've seen this in like the mining sector.
Yeah.
It's like these hedge fund managers think that they know anything. They don't know shit, It's like all they know is just they get an MBA, think that they're smartest people in the world, and they tell people who actually run real businesses what to do. It's ridiculous.
It's funny. I was just on the phone about an hour ago, and I almost wish he was on this show with us right now because it would be hilarious. And he has a background in the coaching world and agile coaching, and I brought him to Omaha last. Not obviously this year, but the year before that for the first time. And he didn't really, he was pretty fascinated by our world and the value investing world and all this. But then he just thought it was kind of funny too, how some of these hedge fund managers he would meet and they would talk about like business stuff. And he's like, dude, I've been working for like, PayPal and Google and eBay and LinkedIn. And I work for the VPs with LinkedIn, and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, so it's really true that you have a lot of these people, they can read a spreadsheet until they're blue in the face. But when it comes to actually understanding more nuances like operations and corporate culture and organizational development, they have no idea what they're talking about. So
exactly.
Totally true. So with something like the shipping industry, how did you even get into it? I mean, it is a notoriously horribly run industry, historically. So what had you even take a look at it? How did that all come about?
Well, I mean, it's really the COVID situation, right?
Yeah.
How it impacted the demand, and they were originally benefiting from the situation because the storage was being built up, and I think a lot of people went into these names because of that. But what what they went wrong is that they didn't study the industry, and so even though I learned about the industry because of the COVID. I mean, it literally took me like nonstop of 3 weeks trying to study the history of the industry of these companies and how they work, and that made me comfortable with entering these positions. And I knew that the COVID situation was good; they made a lot of money, but it was just an icing on the cake.
Right. So where do you see things going forward with these tanker investments? I mean, are these things where you would sell them if they ever got to NAV, or are these long term positions for you? Do you think there's actual industry changes, or do you think generally there's still pretty terrible businesses that just might have some temporary undervaluation?
Well, what you have with these is you're going to have this recovery, right? And uh, the tanker industry in general, yes, you're right. It's a really bad business. It's a commodity business. They don't have any pricing power. So they go through cycles. And from 2003 to 2008, the industry went through a super cycle. They were making a lot of money because prior to that there were some regulatory changes and there was some shortages of tankers, and so the rates on these tankers, what they charge per day, went very high. So from 2003 to 2008, they made a ton of money, and some of these stocks like Frontline went up 40x during that time. But because they made so much money, they ordered too many ships during that time, and and that created a very long 10-year bear market. So from 2009 to literally 2019, they were in a bear market, and the industry started to turn again in 2019 simply because older ships got old. They got taken out of the fleet. There was not much new ordering at that time because of the bear market, and they were just entering the new up or boom or super cycle, whatever you want to call it. The rates started to go up, and that was in 2019. So these stock prices started to go up, and then boom, COVID came,
Yeah.
and they sold off really hard, and now they are just the most hated out of all the entire airlines are more loved than
I
tankers.
think that's
Uh,
probably true.
Right. And
Yeah.
so the way I see it is that, okay, if we get some kind of good news on the recovery, these stocks are probably going to double just on that. And then the story or the thesis will be, oh, we are recovering. Oh, you know what? The super cycle is still coming. So let's bid them up again. So I see that they have, they could double, triple, quadruple from here just on the a story changing.
Yeah. Now, are there certain shipping companies that you like more than others? Because I know there are different kinds of classes of shipping businesses. You can get very detailed on the different kinds of ships. So there are certain businesses that you think are best to take advantage of the recovery.
I never invest in baskets,
Mm-hmm.
never. But when it comes to the shipping, I do have a basket because, like you said, they're all a little different. Some of them focus on transporting crude. Some of them focus on transporting product, which is like gasoline.
Yeah.
And some of them have fleets that are a combination of both. It's just really hard to say who is going to be the winner. So it's just like, let me just get these five and just, not worry too much about exactly which one is going to benefit the most.
And then what would be a price point where you would sell these?
I would say, probably if they go up 3 to 4 times and then a lot of people are talking about them again, loving them again, then I'll probably just sell it to the lovers.
And with shipping, that's typically a good idea.
I guess with anything,
Yeah.
like right now, everybody's talking about gold, right? I would probably be looking at selling it to the people who are so happy to own it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would say with commodities, it's typically a good idea. I mean, if you have a wonderful company, that's generally, right, like Costco has been well loved for many decades, but while it's been well loved, it's also been a pretty good investment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now,
You with the good companies, you can hold them for 20 years and you'll do fine.
yeah, and I would even say the longer you go out, even if there's that temporary, what might seem on the surface overvaluation, unless it's like grossly overvalued, but I mean even a little bit overvalued, if you're holding things for decades, you'll still do pretty well if the company still turns out well as well. I mean, Charlie Munger talks about this quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think this is where I think all of us value investors. Yeah, we like to buy cheap stuff, and we feel good about owning cheap stuff. But really, to make the most money, you have to be comfortable with holding stuff that's overvalued at times. If you really want to hold it for a long time, I mean, you look at, let's say Jeff Bezos, for example. I mean, he's done superbly with Amazon, right? Do you think he's worried about it being overvalued?
He doesn't give a shit.
Exactly. So, and I'm not saying that I would be buying Amazon. I'm just saying that you have these very successful individuals, whether it's Jeff Bezos or even gosh, what's this guy's name from Tesla? What's his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon, right? So again, like I get all this about Tesla, but like he held it from the beginning. He holds it. He doesn't care, and that made him a billionaire. And we sit in front of spreadsheets and be like, oh, it has to be below 12 times PE, or I'm selling, or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's when you can break out of just being purely analytical on a spreadsheet and start seeing the nuances of reality and how life works. I mean, you can mock Elon Musk for, maybe there's certain ways that he does things that you don't like, or he's done some things that clearly have maybe not been the most ethical or just pushed the boundaries, but the guy's brilliant. The guy has built a fuck ton of value, and the guy's a billionaire, so you don't have a right to complain. Like. Yeah.
No, I respect Elon Musk. He's a visionary, and you know what I like about him? That he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And yeah. I like about that. But I wouldn't buy Tesla, not because of him.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't buy Tesla because of the people, the religious nuts that are following this company are bidding it up to the moon. That's why I wouldn't buy it. Yeah. But if for the right price, and I don't know what the right price is. I wouldn't mind taking a look at it, but as far as the man is concerned, I hear all the negatives, but at the end of the day, he did change the world, right? Yeah. And he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, and he also deserves credit. So this is something that isn't often talked about, where he deserves credit for the fact that, especially I think people in our world, our community, in the value investing community, we sometimes will, and for good reason, have a negative connotation for people that are a little overly promotional or, talking about things and being a little salesy. But with a guy like Elon Musk, and especially for a company like Tesla, if he wasn't promotional and he wasn't sharing the story and the vision, well, the equity wouldn't be bid up as much. They couldn't then sell as much stock as they would. I mean, it would have this whole effect where they're able to sell stock and they're able to sell, debt into the market and actually get financing pretty cheaply. Being a public company, where if people really weren't bought into the story, they may not even be around today.
I think as a CEO, that's his job.
Yeah, you're a public company, so if you can sell pricey stock to get capital, that's what. If you don't want to do that, then why be a public company in the first place?
That's right.
Yeah. So let's talk about. So it's interesting that shipping is not your biggest position. What is actually what you're most invested in right now?
Oroco is my biggest position.
Oroco Resources.
It's 6 times as large as all the shipping companies together.
Now, this is the play on electrification, correct?
Well, the whole trend is that it's a copper play. So
yeah, let's start. Yeah, so tell us about this.
Right. So Okay, I don't think there's any doubt that in the future uh, the cars are going to be electric, right? I mean that it's going that direction. It's a matter of time, and also as we have more people around the globe becoming wealthier and nations becoming more developed, they will consume more copper,
Yeah.
and copper. If you look at, for example, oil
Hmm.
and the supply of oil. The supply of oil comes from I don't remember what it is, but maybe like 5,000 individual oil wells supply the whole world. Okay,
Okay.
and when it comes to copper, about half of the copper supply comes from only 25 mines.
Yeah.
That's it. And those 25 mines have been in operations for many, many years, and you can consider them grandmas and grandpas.
Okay.
Uh, and so, if we want to get electrification, if we want to bring more people out of poverty, we need more copper.
Yeah.
And there isn't a lot of copper at these prices. And over the last 10 years, we didn't find really any major deposits that could close that gap. So Oroco is a company that owns a copper deposit. It's called Santa Tomas. And Santa Tomas has been in a legal battle for the past 28 years. Past 20 years. It's a huge copper deposit. It already is a huge copper deposit, but it was uh, taken off of the public market 20 years ago because there was a fight over the title, and it took literally 20 years to get this cleared up, and the legals were 100% resolved a week before COVID hit. So this, and by the way, I started talking about Oracle when it was trading at 4 cents. Now it's 70 cents. So I've been like the first one that started to talk about it. And it's still another 5 or 10 bagger left. Because when I first discovered it, I just could not believe it.
Yeah.
Because I studied all the legals. I was buying legal documents directly from the courthouse on a literally daily basis. And I was actually informing the company how the legals were going in Arizona. Arizona was one of the jurisdictions, and there were 3 different jurisdictions. But because I speak English, I could only get documents from Arizona. I was buying the documents from the courthouse. I was talking to the judge. I mean, I knew exactly what was going on with the legals. I knew they were going to resolve the legals, and of course they resolved that. So the stock is now 20x. But now that it's coming back on the public market, it's a huge copper deposit that has been drilled out and over 30 years ago. But because it was 30 years ago, new regulation was introduced into the mining space. Like, for example, there was Briac scandal in the late 90s, where this geologist pretty much fabricated, added gold, sparkled some gold into the samples so that the results would come out better.
They
And
made a movie about that, right? Was that the one they
right,
made? Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that fraud, there was a lot of people lost so much money. That fraud uh, created what's called the 43101 standard, and because of that standard, the drill results or the drill data on Santa Tomas is out of date. And before this standard, Santa Tomas had feasibility study, had everything up to date. And so if you take all those studies from back then and you update them with the current numbers, the net present value is like $1.6 billion. And the company is trading for like 100 million.
Huh.
So what they have to do now is, we already know that the deposit is huge. It's been drilled out. We already know copper is there.
Yeah.
But what they have to do is confirm some of the data, because it's historical, and they have to update those reports to the current 43101 standards, and then this whole deposit will be taken seriously. Then you can have major mining companies looking at it and acquiring it, because right now there are no core samples. So mining companies are not in the business of speculating. They are in the business of having a deposit that has all the great data together, everything looking good. So that's where the next steps are for Oroco to bring it to that level.
Now, how did
That's
you
my biggest position.
how did you find this business?
Okay, so that was interesting because I was in the mining stocks, years ago, and Oroco and another mining company made a deal. In other words, Oroco had a different deposit and it sold it to, let's call it company X. Okay. And I owned the company X at that time. And so I looked at that transaction, and at that time, Oroco received more money for selling that property than the entire market cap was worth at that time. But I looked at it, and I at that time I had a newsletter, and I wrote about it, but I didn't invest in it. But what was interesting about these two companies is that they made that transaction, but they knew each other. They knew each other so much that they actually shared office space. And it's common in like Vancouver to save money, they have the same office space, right? Mm-hmm. So because I owned this company X, I would call Oroco every month or so to get some scuttlebutt. And I said, hey, is there anything going on with this company X? So every month. And I established a relationship with Oroco. And then at one point, I saw the CEO of Oroco buying a lot of shares, and I did some digging. I did some Google research, and I found this website because in the past they were talking about that they are working on this legal situation, this copper deposit. They didn't tell me the name or anything, but it was just kind of in the conversation that they're working on something. So when the CEO started buying shares, I Googled some names, copper, Oroco, and then I found this website, Santa Thomas Copper Project, and it had literally all of the legal documents on the freaking website. And I called and I said, what is going on? Are you guys in some way connected to this? And he confirmed it. And then I studied the legals and I studied the project, and I just couldn't believe it, because at that time I was like, this project is worth $1 billion and no one is talking about it. And their market cap at that point had $3 million. And I said to I called them up. I said, do you realize that your company is 100 bagger from here? And that's kind of like how I got involved. And then
what was their response to that?
Well, I mean, they obviously knew the situation, but at that point it was not. I mean, it was kind of secretive in a way, because yes, there was a website talking about the project, and there was on the website there was an entity that was tied to Oroco, but it didn't say Oroco. It said Xochipala Gold owns this, but it didn't say that Oroco owns Xochipala Gold. So you kind of had to know that Oroco's entity, one of the entities, was called Xochipala Gold. Otherwise, you would have never found that out. So, it wasn't really public, but you could have connected the dots. And then later on, it became public that they came out because the legals were progressed enough that they thought it was, the legal department thought that it was now material enough to disclose it.
Interesting. It is interesting though that for a mining business, they had some restraint on what they would promote, because I feel like it's typically the opposite, where you have mining companies overly promoting even when there's nothing there.
It's interesting because these guys, I wish they would be more promotional. Actually, it's like, I don't know how much of the promotion actually came from me, because I was writing about this company from 2017. and I still cover this company, and I don't know how many people found them because of me.
It's interesting.
Because I don't see much promotion from the company. I wish they would do more, but they're just not the type of people.
Yeah. Well, maybe they just don't give a shit, and they just feel like, well, as we progress and as our reserves get more confirmed, that the market price will take care of itself.
I think there's some to it, but um, they do go on the road. Before the COVID, they would go on the road and they would expose it, to their best abilities. But I think that, especially when it comes to like some of this is historical, and they can't really say this, they're so limited because of the legal department on how much they can say. And I can say whatever the hell I want, and I'm not tied to the company. They're not paying me. I'm just, a shareholder, and I can say whatever I want. And I think it had some kind of positive impact on the stock. But you're right. Over time, if the project is there, the project is good, they resolve the legal issues, then yes, the stock is going to adjust properly.
Yeah. Interesting. And then you're also involved in you're a shareholder in another company, Mitcham Industries, right?
Yes.
So tell us about that one.
Okay, so Mitcham Industries is interesting because I've followed the company since 2009, and you see, it was a company that was leasing seismic equipment to the oil and gas industry. So they had this pool of seismic equipment, and seismic equipment is used for exploration of oil and gas, right? You do a bunch of studies, you shake up the earth a bit, and you find out where to drill. So that's how I knew the company as. And so I made some money from 2009 because everything was cheap in 2009. And then I kind of forgot about it. And one of my friends emailed me and said, hey, you should look at it because there's something going on there. So I looked at it, and they bought this division, a different division in 2000, I think it was 2014.
Okay.
And their seismic business over time, they were scaling it down. They were selling off their seismic equipment, and they were starting to focus on this new business. And what this new business is side scan sonars. So right now, what you have around the world is you have the navies around the world. They have their fleets, and over the last few years, all the navies around the world, they want to upgrade their fleets to include what's called UUVs, which are underwater unmanned vehicles for different purposes, for mine hunting or whatever. So it's kind of like these drones that you go underwater, and they're like, remote controlled. They don't have any humans. They have cameras, and they have sonars, and sonars are used to take a picture of the seafloor. So Mitcham has this division that makes side scan sonars, and in the world of side scan sonars, there are only like 3 companies that make these. Other than maybe some defense manufacturers might have a division that's in-house. But outside of that, there's only like 3 companies that make side scan sonars. And when I was doing scuttlebutt on Mitcham, and the division that I'm talking about is called Schleien.
It's called what?
Schleien.
Schleien. Okay.
Schleien Marine Systems.
Got it.
So you have Schleien, Edge Tech, and Marine Sonics. These are like the 3 companies. And Schleien and Edge Tech are like Mercedes and BMW of the industry. Like they're the top people, very good, very well known. So now you have this situation where the navies around the world are about to go overdrive into ordering these vehicles, and it's UUVs and AUVs, which are SUVs, which are surface unmanned vehicles. They're about to go crazy with ordering these things over the next 5 years. And here we are sitting, this company that has this division that's about to go crazy, and nobody is talking about it because they still think of Mitcham Industries as this seismic rental equipment company. And no one is paying attention to this transformation that's taking inside. Insiders are buying shares. So that's the story behind that.
And how did you come across this one? I know you said you were invested a while back, but what had you put the connection together?
Just my friend emailed me.
Yeah.
For some reason, he was looking at it, and it was not written up anywhere. Nobody was talking about it. And actually, my friend told me, I started talking about it, and the management at this point is not very promotional because I tell them, hey, do an interview with me. No, we're not going to do it right now because it's so sensitive when it comes to the Navy or defense contracts, and they just announced not too long ago a very game-changing news, a partnership with a major European defense contractor to develop a certain product, and they wouldn't even disclose the name of the European contractor because of that sensitivity.
So here's new investment strategy: go find companies where something's going on, and some legal thing prevents them from disclosing too much information. There's right. I mean, if you think about it, right, that's actually what these last two businesses kind of have in common.
Yeah.
There's
you see, it's easy to look at 10K, look at the financials, and be like, oh, it's trading at so and so. What's harder to do is figure out what the financials are going to be in the future and know it ahead of time. Yeah, and that's what I think is happening here with Mitcham. I don't have to have a perfect picture because, of course, I will never have a perfect picture. But I'm looking at it. I'm doing my scuttlebutt. I see that insiders are buying a lot of shares. Actually, recently, a new hire, a guy that just got to the company, bought 100,000 shares in one day. It never did this before. And so I know something is going on because I've been doing my scuttlebutt and I was on the phone with 50 people and I know exactly what's going on. So all we need for this thing to, and it already moved up 4x from 70 cents. It's over $2. And I wasn't lucky enough to get it at 70, but I was already aware of it at that point. I was just stupid enough not to buy it. But really, when you look at a company that has a market cap of 30 million, and we're talking about major Navy contracts that are coming over the next 5 years, and it's not just Navy. Navy is just the defense side. It's also, this market is exploding in the commercial side too, and so not a lot has to go right. All you really need is just one little contract, and these contracts are not $3 million contracts. They're sizable. So not a lot has to go right for this thing to really pay off.
It's interesting. Are there any other interesting things that you own that you think are worth talking about?
Oh, sure there are, but I'm not going to talk about them because I just launched Microcap Explosions, which is a membership-only website.
So for people who are curious about what you're doing there, how do people sign up? What's the cost? I know you said we talked a little bit about that at the beginning, but give us your pitch on that. So
the way you sign up is you go to microcapexplosions.com. Okay. You watch an introductory video of me talking about it. You open up your wallet, take out the credit card, and enter your information, and you're in.
And how much does that cost?
It's $1,500 per year.
Okay. And what do they get? I mean, I know it's you talking about these microcap companies. Is it write-ups? Is it videos? How many a year? What can new members expect?
Okay, so as the name suggests, microcap explosions. It's small caps, microcaps, because that's where I think I can get my edge. So the idea is to introduce, and I just started it on Friday. So right now we have 3 ideas, and my goal over the next few months this year is to build the inventory of ideas. and I introduce an idea in parts because it's easier to digest it and it's easier for me to write it. Once I introduce the idea, then there are updates to this idea, regular updates. I also bring on guests to interview them, like it could be major shareholders or any shareholders, and the management. Yeah. Because if I were to call the management of Apple, I wouldn't get the interview. But when it comes to microcap stocks, small, they are very happy to do the interview and answer my questions. Also, we're getting ready to do like a conference, the first conference call on the website, where I will invite the CEO of a company and I will invite the members of the club that can join on the conference call and ask questions.
Oh, cool.
So it's a combination of my write-ups, maybe written updates or updates through a video or interviews and things like this. Also, the site has a forum where members can chat with each other. So that's pretty much it.
Well, awesome. Well, you're sounds like you're going to be building a nice little community around this, and I wish you all the best with building that out.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, is there anything? I think we've covered quite a bit. Is there anything else that you feel from what we talked about that just I should have asked a certain question for you or we didn't cover that you just like to talk about real quick, or do you think we've for the basis of this conversation we kind of covered everything?
I think we covered everything.
All right, cool. Well, it was really a pleasure to have you on. It's really nice to talk to you. I really have been a fan of your videos and stuff you've been posting for a little while now. So it's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I wish you the best with everything.